I could see the future of my relationships with other people. So the moment I met Rosie Amenda and saw the bright red heart floating above her head, I understood it immediately. This woman was destined to be my wife. To chase her, I didn't hesitate to sign myself over to the all-women bar she owned. I thought everything was going smoothly, until the heart above her head suddenly vanished. I curled up and clutched my head, overwhelmed with despair. It's over. My wife is gone. That was the moment Rosie's calm, composed face finally cracked. You have a wife? She asked, visibly shaken. Welcome to History channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. There was an all-women's bar on my way home from work. It was called the Rose Parlor. Every time I passed it, I'd sneak a glance inside. But tonight felt different. I turned into an alley first, one I didn't usually take, and noticed two figures under the dim glow of a street lamp. The night was dark. I could barely make them out. A man and a woman. The woman was backing away. The man kept approaching. I didn't need to think twice. He was harassing her. Frowning, I pulled out my phone and called the police. They promised to dispatch someone right away. I hung up and turned to leave. I didn't want trouble. I couldn't take on a man his size. But I'd only walked a few steps before I sighed, bent down to pick up a large plastic bag, and went back. The two had gotten closer. I darted in, yanked the bag over the man's head, grabbed the woman's wrist, and ran. Shouts and curses exploded behind us. The woman pulled me in another direction and yelled, "This way!" She led me into the Rose Parlor and slammed the door shut. The man started pounding on it, relentless. I was about to comfort her when she flipped on the lights. And then I saw her face. Rosie Amenda. She turned to me, concern in her voice. Are you okay? I shook my head. My eyes drifted upward, to the bright red heart floating just above her. I have a strange ability. I can see people's relationship to me, what we're destined to be. Above everyone's head, there's always a symbol. A black X, a white dash, or a heart. The black X means hostility. The darker it is, the deeper the hatred. The white dash means we're strangers. No matter how hard I try, there'll never be a meaningful connection. And the heart means there's love. Friendship, family, romance, it doesn't matter. The redder it is, the stronger the bond. The first time I opened my eyes, I saw a white dash above my parents. I didn't want to believe it. How could a child be a stranger to her own parents? So I tried. I worked hard. I did the chores. I tried to make them like me. But one day, a vase shattered in the living room. My mother smashed everything she could find and walked out the door. I begged my father to go find her. He agreed. He never came back. Some said he died. Some said he abandoned me. All I knew was that I was left behind in that tiny house. Neighbors gathered around. She's crazy. Aren't you afraid her parents will come after you with a knife? What if we take turns raising her? It's just one more pair of chopsticks at the table. Could work. Who wants to go first? No one answered. I looked up at the circle of faces, white dashes, every one of them. I lowered my head. In the end, it was Granny Wong who took me in. She had no children, just a tiny tailor shop to live off of. Even so, I behaved. I helped with the laundry. I cooked. I did my homework on time. But I didn't want to study. School might be the way out for most, but not for me, Eva Watson. So once I turned 18, I left for the city. I switched jobs again and again. 2 months ago, I finally landed a stable one, at a nearby nail salon. The city was colder than the countryside. Not just the weather. The people too. I'd been here for 2 years now. Everyone I saw had a white dash above their head. Still, I told myself, better than a black X. I repeated that every day. Then one night, I took a new route home. And I saw it. A beautiful bar. A soft, golden glow spilling from its windows. The Rose Parlor. And through the glass I spotted it. My second heart. Bright red. I didn't dare ask outright. So I asked around. Turns out, the woman was the owner. Her name was Rosie Amenda. I stared at the red heart above Rosie's head, still slightly dazed. I'm okay, I murmured. Don't worry. I already called the cops. Rosie let out a soft laugh. Thank you. Not long after, sirens wailed outside. She showed me the security footage. The man was already in the back of the police car. It was time for me to go. Wait. Rosie stopped me. She didn't say anything right away. She turned, poured me a drink, then seemed to remember something. How old are you? She asked. 20, I replied. She nodded, offering me the glass. I'm 23, she said. I own this place. I'm Rosie Amenda. I already knew. I'd already looked her up. That realization made me feel weirdly guilty. Ashamed, even. So I gulped down the drink. And immediately choked on it. Tears welled up in my eyes as I coughed uncontrollably. Rosie quickly handed me a glass of water. I drank 1, 2, 3 full glasses before I could breathe again. Embarrassing. Utterly humiliating. She offered me food, but I just waved her off and ran. So much for a first impression. Disaster. I sighed as I fished out my phone. She'd added me. Her WhatsApp name. The Rose Parlor, owner. Such a businesslike name. Still, it made my heart flutter a little. How would we become close? Would we be friends? Or something more? The thought made my cheeks flush. I tossed my phone aside and dove under the covers. The next day, I walked past the Rose Parlor again. It looked like they were remodeling. Still closed. I was about to keep walking, when I nearly bumped into Rosie herself. She was carrying 2 large bags. When she looked up and saw me, she beamed. Oh, it's you. Coming in for a drink? I wanted to say no. But before I could think, my feet had already carried me inside. I didn't know much about alcohol. But Rosie? Rosie did. I sipped from the glass while listening to her explain the origin and characteristics of the drink. I didn't really understand any of it, but her voice was nice. Just like the rest of her. Elegant, composed, and utterly beautiful. Rosie Amenda was nothing like me. She looked like someone who had read 1,000 books. Mature. Graceful. Gorgeous. Halfway through my drink, I couldn't help sighing to myself. I can't believe someone like her actually exists in the world. She blinked. Who? Wait. Did I say that out loud? Before I could recover, I choked so hard my face turned scarlet. Rosie laughed and teased. My drink's not quite to your taste, huh? Desperately trying to save face, I forced out a string of compliments through clenched teeth, all directed at her drink. Our second time together? Another utter failure. Before I could leave, Rosie handed me a flyer. The Rose Parlor reopens tomorrow. Come by if you can. I'll treat you. She'll treat me? I felt like I was floating, lighter than air. Happier than an immortal ascending to heaven. The next day, I sprinted to the Rose Parlor the moment I got off work. But instead of music and guests, I was met by the sound of someone screaming. A woman was rolling on the floor, crying and throwing anything she could get her hands on. Rosie stood there, her face cold as ice. But when she turned to her guests, she smiled and gently ushered them out. I stepped forward, about to help pull the woman off the ground. But Rosie cut in, her voice low and steady. Mom, have you had enough? I froze. Mom. A guest who had just exited noticed me and gently tugged at my arm. You probably shouldn't go in, she said with a sigh. Mrs. Amenda's mother. She's back again. Again. The woman spoke patiently, clearly used to explaining this. Rosie had a terrible relationship with her family. Her parents often showed up just to cause trouble. Last time it was her father. He destroyed half the bar. She had just finished renovating. And now, on opening day, her mother came. The regulars were used to it. At the first sign of drama, they would quietly leave. The woman beside me sighed. I wanted to help her once, but she said no. So, I didn't insist. I looked toward Rosie's face. So calm. So detached. And my heart twisted. She must have gone through a lot over the years. In the end, I didn't go inside. I just stood outside, waiting for her to finish dealing with it all. Inside, the screaming grew louder. When that didn't work, it shifted into shrieks and curses. From the words she used, it became clear. Rosie's mother was here for money. But Rosie had just spent everything renovating the bar. How could she still have anything left? I pulled out my phone. Bank balance. $2,300. After the $1,000 I had to send Grandma, that left me $1,300. I turned around, ready to do something, only to come face to face with Rosie's mother. She didn't notice me. There was a wad of cash in her hands. The smile on her lips and the tears at the corners of her eyes didn't belong on the same face. I was too late. It was over. When Rosie spotted me, her tense expression softened. Afraid of saying the wrong thing, I just smiled. We locked eyes. She pulled out a chair and asked, "Wanna have a drink with me?" I nodded. Just as she turned to grab a bottle, I reached out and stopped her. "Can I try?" I asked. I've been practicing. Just a little. I'd only learned one recipe. Just one. But the drink came out a vivid, striking red. Its name? Blazing Rose. It matched her perfectly. I measured everything carefully, pouring with trembling fingers, then handed the glass to her. Rosie looked surprised. Then curious. She took a sip. Her lips curled into a smile. "It's good. You have a real knack for this." My heart fluttered. I didn't know if I had talent. All I knew was that Rosie Amenda liked the drink I made. I poured myself a glass and sat beside her. Silence fell between us. I wanted to help her, say something comforting. But I didn't want to ruin the mood either. Some people don't want their wounds exposed. I mean, if someone asked me where my parents had gone, I wouldn't get angry. But it would hurt. So I kept quiet. And so did she. Just when I was silently cursing my lack of conversation skills, Rosie spoke. "Thank you. I didn't really do anything," I mumbled. She shook her head. "You helped a lot." My brain stuttered. I wasn't even sure what I'd done. Before I could sort it out, she looked at me. "You really are adorable." "Huh." I said, "You're adorable." She smiled. "I thought so from the moment I first saw you." My face flushed red in an instant. But Rosie, merciless, just kept going. "You're honest, kind, and brave enough to help someone like me. That makes you a very cute girl." My eyes had nowhere to land. I downed the rest of my drink and barely managed to squeeze out 3 words. Thank you." Rosie Amenda curled her lips into a teasing smile. "And what about me? What kind of impression did I leave on you?" I stared at her, brain scrambling. After several laps around my skull, I finally landed on a single phrase. "One of a kind. To me, anyway." She blinked, then let out a soft laugh. "That's a pretty high compliment." Her smile melted the tension in the air. Unfortunately, I had no alcohol tolerance. My head grew heavy, my vision dimmed, light then dark, light then dark. When I glanced up at the clock on the wall, it was already 10 the next morning. I screamed. "Crap. I'm late for work." Rosie appeared from a small adjoining room, a towel slung over her shoulder. "I thought you said you took the day off today?" "Oh, right. I had. I'd asked for time off specifically to spend more time around Rosie. But now my head was pounding like a jackhammer. Talk about losing the battle and the war. Wait. I sat bolt upright and looked around. "Where am I?" "My bar," she said matter-of-factly. "You fell asleep at the table, so I carried you to my room." My eyes widened. "You carried me?" She smiled, eyes curving into delicate crescents. What, worried I took advantage of you?" "And no. Please take advantage of me more often," I thought. I glanced around the room again. There was a bed, a wardrobe, even a tiny kitchenette. It looked a lot like my own rented flat. Rosie walked over with a bowl. "Don't space out. Drink your hangover cure first." I peeked inside. Honey. Ginger. Lemon. It smelled warm. Sweet. Comforting. Of course it would, if it was made by Rosie herself. I grinned like an idiot as she gently pushed me back onto the bed to rest. Then she turned to go about her day. I took another day off and stayed behind to help repair the damage in the bar. Some things could be fixed. Others had to be thrown out and replaced. I could tell Rosie's finances were tight, so I insisted on lending her money. She raised a brow. First time I've heard of someone forcing a loan on someone. Well, it was really just an excuse to get closer to her. And it worked. After that, Rosie started opening up to me more and more. One night, a few drinks in, she told me everything. Everything she'd buried in the back of her heart. A gambler for a father. A leech for a mother. And a girl who'd survived it all. Her. The worst part? One of her dad's so-called friends had nearly assaulted her. She'd made such a scene that the neighbors intervened just in time. She wanted to press charges. Her father accused her of overreacting. Her mother said, "A slap doesn't land unless you're asking for it." Then blamed it on Rosie's skirts. I couldn't help it. Fucking animals, I spat. And instantly regretted it. Those were her parents, after all. Maybe I'd gone too far. But Rosie slammed her glass down with a sharp crack. Damn right. I froze. Then immediately joined in, matching her anger word for word. The Rosie Amenda most people knew. Calm. Elegant. Gracious. Had vanished. And in her place was someone raw, furious, and real. A version of her only I had seen. I took yet another day off. Cleaned the rose parlor until it shone. By afternoon, Rosie opened the doors. Regulars drifted in, chatting quietly, sipping wine. No one brought up her mother. No one mentioned the destruction. They laughed at little things. Talked about nothing. Rosie looked around at the scene and smiled. "This is nice," she murmured. It was. There were no judgmental stares here. Just women, drinking and decompressing. That was why she'd opened an all-women's bar in the first place. The profits weren't much. But it brought joy. I stared at her, eyes shining. How could Rosie Amenda be more beautiful than tonight's moonlight? And then, a wave of unease washed over me. Someone like her. There must be so many people who love her. Except her parents. 1 month after the bar reopened, her parents returned. Drawn in by the scent of money like vultures. They had their routine down to an art. One flopped onto the floor. The other started smashing things. The chairs I had fixed were reduced to splinters again. Her father, panting, got straight to the point. 30 grand. Hand it over and we'll leave. Rosie's hands clenched into fists. Her voice was calm, but firm. You're not getting a single cent. Then she looked at me. A subtle glance. She didn't want to involve me. She wanted me to walk away. Instead, I leaned against the wall and stayed exactly where I was. I wasn't going anywhere. Seeing that, Rosie sighed. And turned back to face her parents. The negotiations began. Her father softened his tone, pretending to be kind. How about this, he said. Sell the bar, find yourself a decent man to marry, and your mother and I will head back home. We'll leave you alone. As he spoke, the woman on the ground scrambled up and pulled a photo out of her bag, shoving it in Rosie Amenda's face. I leaned over and caught a glimpse. A sleazy middle-aged man, oily skin, thinning hair, a smug grin. That's a human being? Artificial intelligence, maybe. Her mother immediately snapped back. Mind your tongue, young lady. You can't just judge a book by its cover. He's got a PhD, owns a car and a house in the city. Then why don't you marry him? I kept the words to myself. Rosie was too quiet. Too calm. I couldn't tell what she was thinking. After a long pause, her father asked, "Well, what's your decision?" Rosie replied coolly, "Wait. For what?" "For the police to arrive." My eyes widened. What? Her father grabbed an empty bottle and charged. But I was ready. I swung the scythe I'd stashed days ago, once to the left, once to the right. Go on, let's see whose reflexes are faster. Yours or my blades. The two of them stumbled back in horror, frozen in place. Even Rosie stared at me. Where did you get a scythe? Bought it. Just in case. Now they were stuck. Couldn't leave, couldn't stay, so they started hurling every insult they could think of. When the police finally arrived, her dad pointed at me. "Officer! She's carrying an illegal weapon. Arrest her." I nearly burst out laughing. I really am a country girl, huh? "Officer," I said sweetly. "It's for cutting grass." They tried to bolt. Bad idea. The second they moved, the officers grew suspicious and tackled them to the ground. The security footage sealed the deal. They were looking at 10 days in a cell, minimum. Rosie turned to me. Thank you. You saved me. Again. I shook my head. I just blocked the door for you. She smiled and didn't argue. I almost wished she would. If she could stop being polite with me, maybe we'd get closer. Back in the Rose parlor, the place was a wreck. But it wasn't as bad as before. Rosie and I spent 3 full days fixing everything. When it was finally back to its former glory, I asked her if she planned to open that afternoon. She gave me a mysterious smile. Nope. First, we're going out to eat. My face turned bright red. Wait, was Rosie Amenda asking me out? Was this my springtime of love finally blooming? Nope. It wasn't that kind of date. Now that her parents were finally dealt with, she'd pulled a few legal and social strings. The details were unclear, but the result was simple. The rose had finally bloomed, free and unburdened, under the sunlight. Rosie swirled her wine glass gently. Eva, she said, have a drink with me. Sure. 1. I'll do 10. Famous last words. I barely ate a few bites before blacking out on the floor. When I woke up, I was in Rosie's bed again. Same hangover remedy. Same post-drunk protocol. Rosie looked at me with amusement. Are you sure it's okay to keep taking days off like this? No. I'd already been fired. But I had pride. I just realized nail art isn't really for me. So I quit. I sneaked a glance at her face. She nodded thoughtfully, as if she understood. Have you ever considered bartending? She asked. I could hire you. I accepted in 0 seconds. As soon as I said yes, Rosie sent me straight to a training program. The types of liquor, the recipes, the ratios. It was enough to fry my brain. If Rosie hadn't stopped by to cheer me on every now and then, I might have actually hung myself with a bar towel in front of my instructor. After 4 long months, I was released from bartending prison and returned to the Rose parlor to work under her wing. Watching her hands move, smooth as water, I was mesmerized. She caught me staring and chuckled. You'll move just like this one day too, once you've done it enough. God, I hope so. That afternoon, I officially started the job. Rosie must have noticed I was nervous, because she didn't stop complimenting me. I grabbed a glass. Nice eye for detail, she said. I hauled over a crate. Strong arms. I sat down to rest. Good sense of balance. Work hard, rest well. I stared at her, exasperated. Rosie, I'm not a kid. You don't need to butter me up. She grinned. You're 3 years younger than me. You are a kid. I pouted. What if she actually saw me as a little sister? That would be a disaster. I jumped up and threw myself into work again. I had to prove I could stand on my own. I had to let Rosie Amenda see. I wasn't just someone to protect. I was someone she could lean on too. Fueled by sheer adrenaline, I had spent a full month training, and finally, I was allowed to take my own customers. Most of the women who came to the hotel bar were regulars, ones who already knew Rosie Amenda. Some helped with promotions, and gradually, a few new faces started appearing. What surprised me was one particular woman, a glamorous older lady, who had a faint pink heart floating above her head. Friend. I felt a thrill and struck up a casual conversation with her. To my shock, we were from the same hometown. That's wild, she said. Where exactly are you from? Just a small rural village. You've probably never heard of it. We laughed and talked as if we'd known each other forever. Rosie came by 5 or 6 times to deliver drinks. We really won't finish all these, I said, trying to stop her. She paused, giving me a strange smile. Oh, I thought you could handle quite a bit. Then she turned on her heel and walked away, heels clicking like punctuation marks on the floor. I scratched my head, unsure what that tone meant. The older woman gave me a once-over and smirked. You like her, don't you? I froze. Was it that obvious? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked me about the 2 of us. After hearing the whole story, she sighed. You're doing it all wrong. What do you mean? You can't just help a girl and expect her to magically fall in love. Without showing affection, how do you know she doesn't just see you as a friend? I was afraid of that. Terrified, actually. Then what should I do? She clearly had more experience than I did. We talked for hours. By the end, my eyes were shining. You're amazing. Just wait. I'm gonna pull this off. I asked Rosie out for a meal during the bar's rest day. She showed up in a long red dress, heels tapping against the pavement with a rhythm that echoed straight into my chest. Each step made my heart skip. I kept my face calm and pulled out her chair with a smile. She sat and said playfully, "You know, I thought you might have invited someone else tonight." I blinked. "What someone else? I only want to have dinner with you." She paused, caught off guard. And then her smile deepened. I did everything the older woman had taught me. Gave Rosie flowers. Peeled shrimp for her. Offered her all the best dishes. But her reactions weren't as warm as I had imagined. In fact, she seemed even less responsive than usual. My confidence wavered. Does she not like me? The best part of the night was that she walked with me afterward. But that was it. No further progress. I lay in bed, tossing and turning. The heart floating above her head was still red. So why did we feel stuck in place? Then a terrible thought struck me. What if we're only meant to be friends? No. I refused to believe it. The next morning, I showed up at the bar with breakfast in hand. Rosie was busy behind the counter. Just as I stepped forward, the door opened. "We're closed during the day," Rosie called politely, poking her head out. I turned around to get a look. And froze. Jennifer Anderson. What was she doing here? Rosie noticed my reaction. "You know her." "Yeah." Middle school memories came rushing back. Jennifer had one of the darkest black exes I'd ever seen. She'd been beautiful, popular, from a wealthy family. But I'd hated her. She called me poor, said I smelled like mildew. She started it, and the rest of the class followed. Pulling my hair. Stuffing gross things into my desk. I tried to fight back, but it never worked. Thankfully, I left that school early and moved on. Eventually, the pain faded. But I recognized her instantly. "You. What are you doing here?" Jennifer stared at me for a long time before recognition dawned. "Eva Watson? You're still around?" "Still. Looking like that." "Looking like what?" I had no interest in entertaining her. I opened the door and gestured. "Out." Jennifer ignored me and sat down like she owned the place. "Why wouldn't you take my money?" "Are you stupid?" I stepped forward, ready to throw her out. But Rosie grabbed my arm. "Don't." Then she brought Jennifer a drink, calm as ever. To my surprise, Jennifer didn't insult the place or demand compensation. She paid. And she kept coming back. Even started greeting Rosie by name. Had she changed? That thought alone made me ease up. Just a little. After I served Jennifer Anderson her drink, she suddenly called out to me. "Hey, I heard you work here now, as a bartender?" Nothing sounded off, so I nodded. "Yeah." Her eyes lit up. "I want to work here too. Could you introduce me to someone?" My brows instantly pulled together. Why would I do that? Besides, do you even know how to bartend? She scoffed. "No need to be rude. We were classmates, weren't we? Can't you help out a little? I'm not asking to be a bartender, just a waitress or something." I gave a dry laugh. Classic abuser behavior. Pretending nothing ever happened. Absolutely not. And we don't need a waitress here. Her expression twisted, but she swallowed it quickly. Like she'd remembered something important and decided to play nice. I stayed close behind as she made her way to the bar. She smiled sweetly as she spoke to Rosie Amenda. But Rosie already knew about our history. Her face was ice cold. After just one sentence from Rosie, Jennifer snapped. "What the hell? Even someone like Eva Watson can bartend here. Why can't I wait tables?" Rosie's face turned glacial. She waved two regulars over, strong ones, and had them carry the screaming Jennifer Anderson out of the bar. I stepped forward to help, but Rosie stopped me. "No need. Just seeing her upsets you. I'll handle it." And just like that, my irritation melted. God. Rosie Amenda was kind of hot. For the next few days, Jennifer kept showing up and making scenes. But compared to Rosie's parents, Jennifer was a minor nuisance. Easily dealt with. The only real issue was that she kept waiting for me after my shift, hiding around the corner. Sometimes begging me to help her get hired. Sometimes hurling insults like venom. I didn't get it. There were so many jobs in this city. Why this place? Then I found out. Jennifer couldn't stand the fact that someone like me, some poor low-class nobody, had made a name for herself here. If I could do it, then she, the former queen bee surrounded by admirers, surely could too. I snorted. If you keep bothering me, I'll make sure you enjoy a nice long stay in a holding cell. She glared at me with pure hatred, hissed, "You'll regret this," and stormed off. I didn't think much of it. But lately, my eyelid had been twitching non-stop. A bad feeling was growing in my chest. I told Rosie. She gave my shoulder a reassuring pat. "Nothing's going to happen. And even if it does, I'll take the hit for you." Her words calmed me. A little. But that night, a group of thugs walked into the Rose parlor. They reeked of smoke and carried steel rods in their hands. "Hey boss, bring out your finest drinks for the boys." Rosie frowned. "Sorry, this bar is for women only." One of them sneered. "What kind of crappy place has dumb rules like that? You looking to shut down?" Then they started smashing everything. I grabbed my scythe and made to charge. But Rosie yanked me back. "There's too many of them. Don't do anything stupid. Just wait for the police." I bit down hard on my lip. As the tables and chairs splintered, my vision blurred with tears. I had a gut feeling. This was because of me. Once the police arrived and dragged the gang out, I dug into where they came from. Sure enough, South Kai. Jennifer Anderson's stomping grounds. I was ready to confront her head-on. But Rosie stepped in, eyes locked on mine. "Eva, I know you're furious. But you cannot act on your own. If she has more people on her side, you'll be in real danger." She said a lot. More than I'd ever heard her say in one breath. Even her usually calm face had cracks in it now. I exhaled slowly. And nodded. I wouldn't do anything reckless. The thugs had no concept of consequences. When they heard they'd be detained for a few weeks, they barely reacted. But when the officer mentioned the damages, tens of thousands worth of repairs, they panicked. One guy with neon green hair jumped up. "Sir, we didn't do it on our own. Some woman told us to trash the place. Make her pay." Then he rattled off a phone number. Jennifer Anderson wasn't that clever. She'd used her real number. It didn't take long before she was sitting in the police station. Rosie took my hand. "Don't worry. I'll make sure she pays for this." Then she walked into the other room to speak with Jennifer. I stared at her back, feeling safer than I'd ever felt in my life. Growing up, I'd kept everything to myself. I didn't want to trouble Grandma Wong, so I handled it all alone. All the pain, all the hurt. I just bit down and swallowed it. But Rosie stepped in and took care of things. She made me feel safe. I wiped my eyes. I swore right then, I'd be good to her. Better than anyone else ever could. 10 minutes later, Rosie walked out of the room and smiled at me. "It's done. Let's go home." "Okay." I didn't dare link arms with her. I just walked quietly by her side. Back to the bar. No. Back home. Everything had finally settled down. No more disturbances at the Rose parlor. Customers were flooding in, and both Rosie Amenda and I were busier than ever. At this rate, asking her out was impossible. Even sitting down to eat together had become a luxury. I looked up at the bright red heart floating above Rosie's head and sighed. When will the future that heart promises actually begin? She reached over and tapped my forehead lightly. "What are you daydreaming about?" "Too tired." I started to shake my head. But then I remembered what the older woman told me. If you like someone, you have to show it. I changed course immediately. "No, I'm just a little sad we haven't had time to hang out lately." I blinked fast, trying to look as innocent and sincere as possible. Rosie blinked, surprised for a moment, then suddenly laughed. "All right. Tomorrow night, I'll take you to see the fireworks." I nearly jumped out of my skin with joy. That night, I woke up at least 3 times grinning in my sleep. The next morning, I stood in front of my mirror, getting ready like I was going to prom. Head to toe, not a single hair out of place. That evening, I rode my bike to the Rose parlor. Just as I turned the corner, someone suddenly stepped out of the alley. I hit the brakes hard, heart pounding. I was about to yell, but the figure slowly stepped into the light. Sallow skin. Hollow eyes. Jennifer Anderson. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Well. Long time no see, Eva Watson. Then, she pulled out a machete from behind her back. My pupils shrank. My first instinct was to spin my bike and flee. But I hesitated. She was barely 10 meters away. By the time I turned the bike around, I'd already be dead. I forced myself to stay calm. Out for a stroll? I asked flatly. Jennifer narrowed her eyes and laughed. You're scared. I can tell. Do you know why you're scared? Because you ruined my life. And people like you deserve to die. I clenched my fists. Above her head, that black X was darker than ever. Of course. That kind of malice. Jennifer had probably thought about killing me a long time ago. I tried to stall, stepping off the bike casually. But she sensed something and moved forward, blade in hand. The tension snapped. I bolted. Stop right there, she screamed. I ran like my life depended on it because it did. I just needed to reach a street, a person, anything. But hatred makes people fast. Jennifer caught up easily. One swing of her arm. The blade sliced across my back. I cried out, falling to the pavement. But what hit harder than the pain was the wave of dizziness that followed. Jennifer yanked my hair, cackling like a maniac. Die! Eva! Die! I went cold all over. Is this it? Am I going to die like this? Why is it always me who gets hurt? Rosie, I'm sorry. I can't watch fireworks with you anymore. A single tear fell. And then I heard it. A voice tearing through the darkness. Eva Watson. It was her. Rosie Amenda. I didn't know if I was dead or alive. My body felt weightless, but I could still see the world clearly. And then I saw her. My younger self. She'd lived my whole life. Worked hard. Made money. Fell for someone. Only to be killed by a psychopath. I stared at my own body, lifeless on the ground. It felt absurd. All that effort and in the end, nothing. I slumped to the floor, exhausted. But then, two familiar figures appeared out of nowhere. Rosie Amenda and Grandma Wong. Both kneeling by my corpse, crying so hard they couldn't speak. I froze. My eyes locked onto their trembling forms. And it finally hit me. Right. I still have them. If I die, they'll suffer too. Can I choose not to die? Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a hospital bed. Outside the window, the leaves had already turned yellow. But the day I collapsed, it was only March 11th. I moved slightly. There was sensation. This was real. A nurse rushed off to call someone. Moments later, Rosie burst through the door. The moment our eyes met, tears poured down her face. Eva Watson, she choked out. You nearly gave me a heart attack. I smiled weakly. Hey, Rosie. Long time no see. I'm sorry I made you worry. Rosie told me Jennifer had been arrested. The Rose Parlor was thriving. I didn't need to worry about anything. She'd take care of me. I grinned. So what? You're my sugar mama now? Rosie didn't even flinch. Yes. I'll sponsor you for life. Now it was my turn to fall apart. I glanced up. And stopped. The bright red heart above Rosie's head was gone. It had disappeared the moment I woke up. Back then, I'd been so focused on Rosie Amenda, I hadn't noticed the heart. It wasn't until my gaze drifted upward that I realized. The love marker was gone. I shot upright like a miracle patient on a hospital drama. Oh no. No. My wife is gone. Rosie, halfway through peeling an apple, paused. Your wife? You have a wife. I immediately flopped back into the bed, sheepish. And never mind. It's nothing. She didn't buy it. Her eyes locked onto mine with a kind of quiet authority that didn't allow lies. I had no choice but to explain everything about my ability. She caught the most important detail instantly, raising a brow. So, you were into me from the start? Okay, let's not tease the patient. I'm still recovering here. All right. She chuckled, then added, don't overthink it. Maybe your wife hasn't run away. I nodded automatically. Then froze. Wait, what did she mean by that? She likes me, right? Probably. Hopefully. I quietly savored the apple she'd peeled for me, then glanced at the nurse walking in to change my bandages. There was nothing above her head. No line, no X, no heart. So it wasn't that Rosie had stopped loving me. It was my ability. It was gone. Why? I didn't know. Didn't feel like figuring it out either. All I needed to know was, whoever cared about me, I'd care about them just as much. The first thing I did after being discharged was buy flowers and a gift. I was going to confess. But the moment I stepped through the doors of the Rose Parlor, a love song was already playing throughout the bar. Wait a second. Am I crashing someone else's proposal? I quickly tucked the flowers behind my back and stood quietly in the corner, waiting to see who the lead character of this little love story was. Suddenly, the lights went out. A single spotlight dropped down, right on me. In that instant, I became the center of the universe. My heart thudded wildly. Across the room, another beam of light revealed a familiar figure. Rosie Amenda. Walking toward me, holding a bouquet of red roses. She stopped just a step away, lifting the bouquet with both hands. The meaning of red roses, she said softly, is passionate love and deep affection. They symbolize a romance that burns like fire. Raw, honest, and impossible to hide. She stepped closer. I have that kind of love for you, Eva. Will you have a romance with me that burns just as fiercely? The first thing I did was cry. Because after more than 10 years of loneliness, I had finally found someone who loved me back. I reached out and accepted the bouquet, and replied with quiet certainty, I will. 1 month after we started dating, we bought a small apartment near the Rose Parlor. It wasn't big, but it was peaceful. No noise, no light pollution. Perfect for our home. And yes, my ability had vanished. But Rosie, she'd somehow bloomed overnight into a complete flirt. Always touching, always teasing. It got to the point where I couldn't even get out of bed some mornings. One day, I finally broke. I sat her down and gave her a full set of rhinestone nails like I was back at my old job. Rosie blinked at them. You into this kind of thing? I stared in horror. Nope. Then immediately ripped the nails off her one by one. That kind of blessing? Way too spicy for me. On New Year's Eve, I brought Rosie home to meet Grandma Wong. Grandma was thrilled. Grinning from ear to ear, she held Rosie hostage for over an hour, chatting about everything under the sun. I tuned most of it out. Just background noise. Until I walked out of the bathroom and saw Rosie holding a ring in front of Grandma. She looked completely serious. Eva, will you marry me? Grandma clapped, practically squealing. Yes, that's exactly the kind of thing my Eva falls for. You do this, and she's already yours. I blushed furiously. Grandma, you're selling me out. Rosie just laughed and gently ignored me. Relax. It's not the real ring. I'll buy a bigger one later. That's not the point. I huffed. Seeing the storm coming, Grandma quickly changed the subject and dragged us to the dinner table. New Year's dinner calls for a toast. I stood up with my glass. Come on. Let's toast to a brand new year. Clink. The sound of overflowing happiness. And in my heart, I made a quiet wish. May we always be this happy. For a very, very long time. The end.